In this video here, we're going to take a look at how to factor a trinomial into two binomials using the method of decomposition. Decomposition is one method that you can use in order to solve or in order to factor. There are other methods as well, which we can maybe take a look at in some other videos. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to use general form as a guide as to what to do. So I'm going to reference general form. General form is ax squared plus bx plus c. So that first term, that x squared term, or whatever the variable is, squared term, the number in front of the x squared is a. Okay, so in the one that you see above, that the value is 1. The second term, the bx term in the example above, is 6x. So that 6 is the value of b. And finally, the constant or the c value is that last number, and that is c. So we have these values right here, which we can understand, and we need to know what those values are. In a basic example like this, where a is 1, it's going to hopefully be a little simpler, or we'll try to understand this a bit simpler, but we could use it for all examples, even if a is not 1. First step in order to solve using decomposition is we need to multiply the a and the c values together. Now, we already determined it that a is 1 and c is 8, and so 1 times 8 is equal to 8. That's the key number that we're going to look at. Now, again, when a is 1, it's just going to be what c is, so we can kind of look at that as being a bit of an easier method there. Step number 2 is we need to find all pairs of factors for AC. So we need to find all values which multiply together to get 8. Now we're just going to look for integers. Okay, and you notice I mentioned integers, so that's going to be both positives and negatives. In this case, it's all positives, so that would be all we need to find, but we could do with negatives as well. So 8 is 1 times 8. It's also 2 times 4. Those are the only positive ones. And we also have the negative ones, so negative 1 times negative 8 and negative 2 times negative 4. Now you might notice as we move a little farther that we don't need those, but I do want to show you that as it's part of the method. All right, step 3, we need to find the pair. Okay, so we just found 4 pairs that are factors or of 8. We need to find the pair which adds to the b value. Now b is equal to 6. And so we have to find which pair adds up to 6. 1 plus 8, 9. That one doesn't work. 2 plus 4, 6. Perfect. That one works. So we can use this because adding them together gives us 6. And so this is going to be the pair that work. Okay, 2 and 4 are the pair that work. Now you'll notice that the negative ones in there, they're not going to add up to a positive number. But if the middle number was negative, we would have to use the negative values. All right, let's remember the 2 and 4 as we move on to the next step in factoring. All right, step 4, we need to rewrite the trinomial splitting up the middle term. This is the decomposition portion of the process, which is why we get the decomposition name of the process. And so we're going to write out our polynomial as such. X squared plus 2x plus 4x is plus 8. Now, 2x plus 4x add up to 6x. So we haven't changed the value of this at all. Only thing we've done is we have just written it out a little bit differently, which is okay. So what we're going to do with that, we are going to now, in step 5, we're going to look at the first 2 terms, x squared and 2x, and we are going to factor a greatest common factor from those two. Now we're going to focus only on the x squared and the 2x. We're going to ignore the other two for the time being. And we're going to look at what is the greatest common factor we can divide evenly into x squared and 2x. The number, in this case, it's going to be 1 because that's the biggest number that we have there that we can do into both. But we can take an x out. And so it's going to look like this. X and then x plus 2 in brackets because we have factored that x out of the first two. Now we're going to look at the second two. So step 5, or sorry, this would be part of step 5 still, is we're going to factor a 4 out of the second two because 4x and 8 can both be divided by 4. And when we do that, we're going to get 4 and then x plus 2 as well. Something that you'll notice here, and this is very important, is that what is inside the brackets is exactly the same. So both groups of brackets have x plus 2 in them. The factors in front, we're going to have an x factor and we're going to have a number factor in this case. Again, that differs for different examples, but in this case, we have an x factor and a number factor. So finally, the last step that we're going to do is we need to figure out what are our two brackets, and we can use what we have done here using the greatest common factor to do that. The first box is going to be the two greatest common factors that we took out. So we're going to take the x and the 4 and we're going to plug them in, and that's going to be our first box, or at least one of our boxes. The order doesn't really matter, but we'll say that that's our first box. The second box, and this is step 7, is that the dividend of both, or what's inside the bracket, is going to be our second binomial. So the x plus 2 is going to go right there. Now, this is our factored trinomial. It's factored into two binomials, okay? And there was no other greatest common factor that could be taken from the whole thing. So using decomposition, we can come up with our two binomials.